On the 11th of November each year, we commemorate Remembrance Day. It's a day when we honour armed forces members who have died in the line of duty in all wars. I'm privileged to be here today with my good friend Paul Graham, who is a former Deputy Mayor and Councillor of the City of Botany Bay, formerly President of Mascot RSL sub-branch, and a fantastic local. And I want to thank you very much for being here today for us to share this
pleasure.
This conversation together, because you've done some amazing things, and one of the things that is absolutely spectacular is having those poppies displayed on the Opera House sales, which is just a fantastic achievement, and I'm certainly looking forward to going with you again this year. So Paul, can you please let us know what Remembrance Day means to you?
Well, I joined up when I was 14 years of age. I was sent to Malaya in 1955 when I was probably 17, at the time of the troubles in Malaya. And I won't go into the history of it because it's very disturbing, but I lost 5 of my best mates. All 18-year-old kids. We thought when we went there at first it was all great fun until you see your mates getting killed. The First World War, where we get the poppies from, millions of people died. Men, women, children, starvation. It was just a terrible war. It was supposed to be the war that ended all wars. The poppies came from Flanders Field. If you can imagine the fields of France, there was no crops growing. It was just all fields with the snow, mud, with the army guns and tanks going all over these fields. It just churned it all up into a sea of mud. The only thing that grew there was a wild poppy. And a gentleman picked it up and took it back to England. And he said, this is what we will remember these people with, this poppy. And that's how the poppies were formed. Remembrance Day does not have the same emphasis as Anzac Day for obvious reasons, I suppose. But we should care more about it than what we do.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And so you started on a campaign a number of years ago to get poppies on the...
About 8 years ago, I was selling poppies at East Gardens. And I was amazed the number of people who came up to me and said, what are the poppies for? And I'm not talking about newly arrived migrants, I'm talking about school kids, Aussies. And I came back and was lying in bed, and it annoyed me. I thought, well, what can I do that would sort of educate people what poppies are about? And I thought, I'll put poppies in the Opera House. So I went to Ron Honig, my local member, and I wrote to the Premier, Mike Baird. And I said, the least we can do for our fallen is to put the poppies on the Opera House. Ron met with Mike Baird, and so did I, and I'm glad to say the Premier at the time said, Paul, what a great idea, we will do it. The only problem was, for the next 7 years, every year I had to go down to Parliament and beg for funding. Last year, 2GB rang me and said, we heard about your poppies. Why do you have to go down and beg for money? I said, because that's the way it is. He said, well, Paul, we have the Minister on the line. Minister, what are you going to say to Paul? Well, Paul, we're going to do this forevermore. We've spoken to the opposition. They have agreed this will be done forevermore. And it really made me feel so good that it's a legacy that when I'm long gone, people will still remember the poppies. And then he rang me and said, you'd like a service at the Opera House. I said, yeah, it'd be nice to do something. So they had Sydney Airport ring me, a corporation, and they rang and said, Paul, we will fund the Clan MacLeod Pipe Band at the forecourt of the Opera House on the 11th of the 11th. And when the poppies get lit up, we can play the lament. So it was a wonderful occasion, and one I'll always remember. And I don't think of any other building in the world that we could project that. And it makes people think, what are the poppies for? they're here so we remember our dead.
Yeah. And it's just absolutely fantastic. And like you said, that's something that will be there forever. And
To be endured forever, yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I've always said if you can leave your mark in this world, you're doing all right. And that's my mark.
You will leave it. Thank you.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you sharing that
it's a
story with
pleasure.
us today.